to get it prepared for today. And the reason for that is obviously to set us up for what we're going to work on today, which is going in and adding darker colors to pull out some detail of some work that we have from the last session. So what I did was I went ahead and added some line work here. I don't know if you can tell that. I don't know if you can see that. I'll bring you closer if you can't.
Yes.
So you see the line work. I've worked on that a little bit, and then I did some here. And then I went ahead, and you can't see it off right, but there's a nice white section here that I glazed to make this the main light source.
Ooh.
And you can look at it two different ways, because I look at it one way and Jared looks at it the other, and that is, this is looking in at something and he sees it as looking out of something. So what we're doing, and it's the same concept really, is we're going to darken all this area around this light source. But before I do that, I'm going in with dark colors to pull out some detail, which is why I worked the painting while we were from session A to session B. So I've already went ahead and started here at the top. I don't know if you can tell, there's a little bit of a glare. But up here at the top, I've started adding some darker colors in around these lines. And I've focused on pulling these lines out, because when you do that, that color that's within that area is going to pop. So I want to do that throughout the rest of the painting over here and down here. And what I'm doing that with is a very thin brush. And you can see here, I don't know if you can see here, it's a very thin brush. It's from Michael's. It's just a number 4 round brush. And the purpose of this is just to get in there and get some line work done. So I'm going to dip it in my Galkid. Remember we talked about Galkid last time, which was the medium that I use that helps thin the oil paint, kind of makes it easier to dry, easier to spread, and allows us to do that glazing that I'm talking about. And that glazing is just putting layers of paint on so that it eventually will pull out what you want or push back what you want. And you just have to know how to work with light and darkness, light and shadows. Obviously darker things are going to pull out some parts of these paintings. And if you can look at this line work up here, and this is a really good example of what I'm talking about, all this information that's in this area right here, I'm just going to go through with my thin brush here, and just put some line work in with the darker color. And I'm using burnt umber on top of burnt sienna. So you guys are going to be able to see that. Let me just sit you down for a moment while I work on this. If you have any questions while I'm doing this, ask me, because all I'm doing is intuitively going with the lines that are already on here. And then because I'm using that Galkid, which thins the paint and makes it so that you can glaze and put layers on layers, what that's going to allow me to do is shade these specific parts. And so that's going to change the painting however we want to change the painting. And you can go back through with your rag and wipe off parts that you don't like, and then go back through with your paintbrush. Yes, ma'am. Do you have a question, Miss Deborah?
No, did I say something?
Oh, you did.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. We welcome it for sure.
But I'm loving how you explained the glaze part. That is so cool. Oh, look what you're doing. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It pulls it out whenever you're using this technique. And like I said, you can use this color on pretty much any part of the painting, because to me, the darker colors are going to pull out those lighter colors. And if it's too dark like that, then you can go in and just kind of wipe it with your glove and blend it. Or you can use your rag, whichever one you see fit. But all I'm doing is working this beautiful line work that's already put in the painting from the last brush strokes and the last palette strokes that we put on here. And I mean, go ahead.
I'm sorry. How does the Galkid work with the paint as it's now that it's dried versus when it was wet? Would it be
Well, there's a sheen on it. So what that does is it adds like the word glaze, it adds that nice shiny sheen to it.
okay?
If that's too much for you, if the sheen is too much, you can always use the mineral spirits instead of the Galkid to thin the paint to make the layering happen. One thing you have to understand about the mineral spirits is that that is a paint thinner. So while it does thin the paint, it could thin the paint that you've already got on the canvas.
Right.
And so then it would take the paint off the canvas. So you just got to be careful how much you use and where you use it at.
Mhm.
I really like using the Galkid though. And it's an expensive medium, but like I said, it does leave a sheen on there. And what you can do is go back over that if you don't like it.
Mhm.
But for me, it makes it to where you can flip the painting any way that you want. And then when you do that, it kind of changes the whole perspective of it. So Galkit is a really amazing tool. It's something that I was introduced to in my undergrad, and it's something that I really think people could utilize in their paintings if they're really trying to get certain levels of depth.
Mm.
You can also use Galkit and the mineral spirits together to achieve the same effect, but um it has a different dry time. It has a different
Bean.
um well, it changes the consistency of the paint, of the oil paint.
Hmm.
And it does dry a lot quicker, but whenever you get oil paint that has the mineral spirits in it, if you notice how the paint separates from the canvas here, whenever you do that with mineral spirits, it does like this right here. It
Mm.
does tend to separate from the canvas, and I can bring it closer so you can see that. But right there, and that's a really good method to, I mean, if you know how to use the mineral spirits to pull that effect out, then that's amazing. You just have to make sure that you're getting the desired effect. And this is like a washed out look right here with that, which we're going to keep. We're not going to mess with that.
Does
So all
the
I'm doing, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Does the mineral spirits give the sheen too, like the Galkid?
No, it does not.
Okay.
That's why if you don't like the sheen on it, if you would rather have it where it's not shiny and more muted and kind of matte, then you can go in with just the mineral spirits. Like I'll do that now and I'll show you guys
Yeah.
when it dries, and we can pick an area like this area over here. If we use the mineral spirits and we go in with, I'm going to use the burnt umber again. And we're going to use it just a little bit more. You want your brush to be really wet when you're doing line work. And the purpose of that is to make even lines so that the line doesn't get choppy. So we have these yellow lines in here with this okra, and I'm just going to work with these lines. And then what we'll do is we'll test this, and you'll see when it dries, and it'll dry probably a little quicker than the Galkit will. And the only reason for that is because I'm using very little paint, and the mineral spirits is meant to dry that quickly. The Galkid might take a little bit because it's going to be a little sticky. So I just went with that line right there. And what I'm going to do is dip it in the mineral spirits again, dab it off, and I'm going to lay my brush sideways and pull down. And all that does is that blends that paint that I laid, but it fills in those lines that we want to fill in. So you're adding detail and blending at the same time.
Is that still the same thin brush you were using for the
It
line?
is. It
Okay.
is. It's very, very thin. It's a
Mhm.
nice, pretty line here, maybe here. See
Very
that? It's
nice.
a
Yeah.
long line. It's a long round brush. It's considered a round brush. But essentially all that I'm doing is collecting some paint on there. I'm wiping it on my rag. And you'll get more intuitive with this when you realize like the goal that you have overall, and you'll get real intuitive with how you want that line to look. So like right here, just adding this detail, and that's going to bring that out a little bit more. It's allowing me to blend it as well. And oh shoot, that happens too. Oh, all right, should be good. So I'm just gonna do that line work, and I'm gonna pull it so that it blends it as I'm pulling it. And you see that's adding that nice detail. So now those shapes are standing out. Can you guys see that, or do I need to pull closer?
A little bit closer.
Yeah, a little bit close. But I mean, even from that distance, you can tell the lines versus, I mean, it still stands out where you initially put those lines down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you're working in abstract painting, what I normally like to do is work very intuitively with it so that I'm not forcing something that's not there, and I'm not like making it to where I'm trying to put something on the canvas that isn't already there. So like all these shapes are already there. I'm just bringing it out with this method of lining out the work. So I've dipped back into the gal kit now, and I'm just shading this and pulling these lines out. These lines down here are actually very, very cool. And I took a before picture of the painting. I like to take pictures of the paintings, and I recommend everybody do this in the steps like in which I work it. So like every class, we're going to take a picture of our paintings to see how far it goes, to see how it changes. And it's actually very interesting to kind of see what happens whenever you go in and you work a painting and you work a painting and you work a painting, because you have to know when not work the painting. You know what I'm saying? You have to know when it's too much. And so what I like about some of the palette knife work that I do, and Tiffany brought this up in the last class, was the ribbon effect that it leaves, and how you can go back in and just use your darker color like I'm doing today and line this stuff out so that it brings it out.
Well, now, can you do that palette? Can you do that work after it's dry? Can you you can layer and layer? You can keep layering?
Absolutely. I mean, oil paint.
I just want to hear that sound over and over. So I have how long does this need to dry? So I mean, we've had some time between this, but how long should you let it set between version 1 and 2?
Well, if you're wanting to work palette knife work into it over and over again, you have to let it sit long enough to where the thick paint that's on here isn't tacky. So like this right here is thicker, but it's not tacky. All this other stuff, like in the center, this is okay. But if you were to take a palette knife to it, you'd take off some of this texture you have on here. So when you're adding more palette knife work to it, which you can definitely do when you get to that point and you're ready to do that, you just have to be mindful of how you're putting your palette knife over top of it. So if I was to go over top of this with a darker color and I just do it very lightly, then everything that's sticking up, that's actual texture, is going to catch that dark color. And that's going to fill in. I mean, that's going to look really nice if I did that. That's one really good method or technique of going ahead and adding that darker texture on there in one fell swoop. But I'm too afraid.
I'm nervous. I'm having a Bob Ross moment right now. I'm so nervous. I'm don't touch that part of the painting. But then I know if you do, it will still be beautiful. But I'm just having that moment oh.
Yeah, we're not going to touch that yet. This is a very special part of this painting because it is the main light source. So we're going to work the outside for quite some time to darken it up and get it where we want it to be. And like I said, adding these little bits in there, here and there is going to be probably very beneficial for pulling this light source back out. And you can look at it, like I said, in either way, because Jared sees it as looking out, honey. Is that right? And then I see it as looking down in something. So it's kind of interesting with a different perspective, but the same lighting source is conceptually across the board.
It looks like standing at a cliff and you're looking down at an ocean or something, that's
right.
Love that perspective. Right. Do you you mentioned last session that that the one thing that you've learned about painting is having a surprise in there, and that really it's kind of dependent upon the viewer on what that surprise might be. But with the changes that you've made here, do you still see the same area as your surprise area, or has that changed?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's central. For me, it's right here. What I want it to go to, though, is is for it to not be as obvious.
Okay.
So I'm very tactful in where I put the surprise, even though the color here was supposed to be the surprise. That can change. It can change throughout the entire lifespan of painting the painting. And for me, I already know where I want to go with it, but I'm not going to reveal that. I'm just going to do it and see if anybody notices.
Oh, good, good.
So I'm going to keep you all interested and see where it goes.
Mhm.
And see what it is that you think is the surprise. Because if you think it's the surprise and it's not, then I'm gonna get you. But if you can help me and stay on my track then and figure it out, then we're on the same wavelength. But if not, no big deal. I just am gonna really, really, really surprise you at that point. So yeah, I'm gonna say that I wanted it to be the center. I wanted it to be that orange, but I'm going to change it. I've already planned on changing it since you've actually brought that topic up. So thank you for that. But what we're going to do is we're still going to work the outside of this painting, and I'm going to leave that where it's at right now because I like what I've done. Like I said, I glazed white right here to help pull the light. So now we're going to work around that and push this back or pull it forward, whichever perspective you have. I'm just going in and doing line work because I think that it's very cool that I've done all this painting, all this palette knife work, all this scrunchy rag work. And there's so much interesting stuff in here that nobody really sees unless you go in with your paint and you do this. Like this right here. This was a really nice surprise right here.
Bring
I'm just
your
gonna mix
phone over or whatever you're using over just a tad bit toward that area. There you go. Thank you.
I can even bring it a little closer.
Right.
Ooh.
Look at that. Wow.
Okay.
That's
Can you guys see all that right there?
Yeah, you definitely can see more detail now that you're like up close.
Yeah, so I'm just going in and you let me know when I get out of frame, but I'm just gonna hold the phone so you can see what I'm doing here. And sometimes whenever you do that and you kind of get paint in places you're not supposed to, just go in with your rag. And just
Rags.
know
All right,
that
I need to invest in some rags.
Yes.
get old t-shirts, and tear them up because those are the best rags. But what I've done is I've laid my wrist on it. So get in the habit of using your pinky to hold your hand for steady paint like this, doing your line work. That way you don't actually put your wrist in it because I've got copper on my wrist now, which just moved it, which isn't terrible. That's an easy fix. But I still want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing with this line work here.
I've seen two products. I've seen Galkid and Galkid Light. Is there a major difference there or one that you recommend over the other?
Well, what I'm using is Galkid Light. And the reason that I'm using that is because I got a big bottle of it on sale. But honestly, I don't know the difference between the two. I just know that the purpose of it is to thin that paint so you can work with it. So they're both going to do that. Just get the cheaper of the two in my book. Galkid Light is probably not as thick on the chemical in it that's actually in the regular Galkid, so I can just kind of deduce that based off of the name. But as far as actually knowing the difference in the two, yeah, no, I don't have a clue. I just know that it was on sale, so that's when I got it. And Galkid tends to dry a lot quickly, like a lot quicker. And it forms into this weird gelatin like product, and you can honestly use that. And I actually have a glob of it that I'm going to use, and I'll show you guys how I use that at a later date or today if we have time. But for today, like I said, we're just going to use it for shading and line work. And I've actually got some, what is this, ultramarine, I believe, this blue color, because I wanted to bring this blue color in because blue, the ultramarine, and the burnt umber actually make black. Okay. So when you paint, you have to know color theory. If you don't know color theory, just YouTube it. We can go over that in another day too if you'd like. But what you're going to want to do is learn how mixing these colors actually affects a painting and what color that makes. So I've actually got some, I think it's ultramarine. Let me double check. What color did I use today? But I know that these two make, Yeah, it's ultramarine. These two make black. So burnt umber and ultramarine make black. And I've dipped it now in the ultramarine. And what that's going to do is just make that a little darker for us. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh,
It almost makes it black, but I'm keeping it pretty thin by continuously dipping my brush in the Gogh kit only. And the purpose of that is to add these lines. Look at that. See how it just makes the depth of it?
But you still get the background color, like.
Yes, and it pulls through. And when this dries, you're
like
still going to be able to have that.
Smudging, smudger.
Yeah.
Make up my own words.
It's a really good medium. It really is to use.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I've messed that up over there again. That's okay. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab my rag off the floor. And see, there's still some stuff here that I want to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and dip my brush back into the Gogh kit, back into the ultramarine. And then we're going to go back in here and just add. And then even here. And all it does is it pulls all these little moments out of this painting that already exists, but you're not really going to see unless you add darkness or light to it.
I've always struggled with trying to make something look like bright light on a painting, so this is very informative.
Yeah, if you want something to look like bright light, put something dark next to it. It's a lot easier to work dark into a painting than it is to work light, in my experience. And for that, like why that is, I'm really not sure, but I honestly, with this blue going in, I honestly really like what it's going to do with these yellows, because it's just going to pull them all out. And all I'm doing is walking up this line here with this blue, and then just spreading the love.
So would you say if you want to make something warmer, put something cooler beside it and vice versa?
Right. That is a really good technique to remember. There's more than one way of doing that, but that's a really good one to remember. And you know, when you learn color theory and you go back in and you utilize that in your paintings and you work really smart with color, then it just elevates your painting, it elevates your work, it elevates the purpose of the painting. So I highly recommend.
I'm thinking, you know, we might be able to do like pre-recorded classes where you talk about color theory that people can, you know, like pay $10 or so to watch a class on color theory that you're doing, and then come do one of your live classes, and then maybe schedule a one-on-one if they want to like develop their painting further. Because I mean, I would like that. I would like to be like in that group class, like, you know, read about color theory, but even if I could have you teaching it to me in like a short class, watch that, come to that November 5th class, and then get something started. Because for me, I feel like that's the hardest part, especially like I'm an artist, but my art form is dance. Like I am not a painter, but I want to paint. So I think for me, like just getting started, and not because I'm nervous about starting.
Yeah.
In that like group setting where you're kind of like, you know, it's fun and I mean, you're focused, but you're having fun. You're just getting started. And then after November 5th, being able to book a one-on-one session to say, okay, now I want to work on a certain technique, or I want a certain, you know, style or something. Cause I'm sure everybody's going to like get something on a canvas and then be like, oh, I want to work on XYZ.
Right. Yeah, totally. I mean, booking the one-on-one sessions whenever you've got your own painting going, when you figure out where you want to go with it, or if you don't know, then I mean, we can definitely work with getting a one-on-one so that we can help you figure out what it is that you're trying to express with it.
Yeah.
Abstract painting, the biggest thing for me is remembering that it is about that expression. And so if you don't know what you want to express when you're going in to start a painting and you just want to start, sometimes having that color theory or having just an idea of what feeling you're going for will help determine what color you want to use. But if you notice what we've done with the blue work here, how much that's bringing out the yellow, right? Like
Mhm.
this whole area here is nice and juicy, and
Yeah.
I mean it's very floral down here to me, even though this is all brown, like all these little shapes in here. And I'll just go through and mark what I see so you guys can see it, because I'm going to keep adding. Glazing is a technique that takes a lot of time just because you have to wait for paint to dry, which is why, you know, the Mona Lisa took so long, which is why a lot of really famous artists took forever with their paintings, is because oil paint takes forever to dry and glazing is layering.
Yeah.
So you're just going in and adding layers. And for me, what this does is it allows for a liberty of like placing shapes where I see shapes where other people may not see shapes, and vice versa. Like you guys can tell me where you see a shape where a line should be, maybe, or where there needs to be shadow or not as much shadow.
Crazy, because
But
to me this looks like Torrey Pines. Like it looks like Torrey Pines, which is a cliff, like an ocean cliff in California, where it's,
uh-huh.
you have all these like boulders and stuff, but they're like they've been worn, so they're like circular and like weathered, and like it's just funny to me. It's like it looks to me like the ocean, but there's not your typical blues, greens, all of
Right.
yeah, I don't know. It's just
Yeah, I
With you.
think having one idea of what the ocean looks like is definitely um going to hinder some people. So if you just take into account that like there's different parts of the world, like
yeah.
in California and Washington State, the ocean is like gray because of the rocks and stuff.
Mhm.
So but yeah, I can definitely see where you're headed with that thought on how it looks like the ocean, but it doesn't. So, and I really love abstract because people can kind of get their own sense of what something is and share that with you. And it's so interesting to kind of see where they come from on it,
Well, in
as
that part
opposed
too,
to,
down like in the bottom left, there's like that white part that goes in between the swirls. It looks like kind of almost like waterfalls down into the painting, like that, like circular little.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. So it's cool because it's like you have the outside. Clearly, there's like a frame around the center, but the center
Mm-hmm.
still, like intermingles with the like frame. I don't know. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And whenever I talked to Jared about like what color to go in with, and him and I both had the same idea of the ultramarine, the blue. And for me, my idea with it was that ultramarine and burnt umber make black, so it's going to bring out the, you know, the dark. But with blue and yellow next to each other, those are contrasting colors, and then you have the orange in here as well. So that's just going to make every little bit stand out when you add the blue. So I see where he was coming from with it as well. So it's kind of interesting to see the different perspectives. And Jared thinks different than I do, so it kind of helps me see from a more, I guess, analytical perspective, which is, I feel like, how his brain works. Um, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jared,
No, you're
but
good. Yeah. I'm always trying to find the concrete in your abstract.
yeah.
And your abstract is almost like a stream of emotion, almost, I would say.
Oh, I would agree for sure.
Or I would be interested to see like, or if I were taking those pictures like you said, I'd probably want to journal along with it just to
Oh,
see what kind of emotions I was feeling
oh yeah.
Oh,
at
totally,
each
Cool.
stage.
totally. And you know, my favorite thing about discussing paintings with like you or with Tiffany, just like conceptually seeing where something goes, is you guys help narrow my thoughts because I'm all over the place with it. Like if you think that this is a really cool painting, like this is probably my brain, like a really good representation of my brain and how kind of crazy it can get. But yeah, it just, for me, it kind of makes it whenever I'm able to discuss that kind of, well, what made you do this conceptually, and what that conversation turns into and where that leads. So for me, it really helps me to have different perspectives, and understanding that you're completely different than me in the way you think kind of helps me branch out in my own paintings. So I welcome it.
And does that, like, do you hold like a name in your mind? Like when you're painting this, are you like thinking of a name for your artwork? Is that something you typically do, or is that?
Well, when it comes to naming a piece of art or a painting, I usually do it at the end. If I want to like get suggestions for what kind of name we could name a painting, then we can work along, work on that along the way. But I don't name a painting until it's completely done and over with and I've taken, 12 steps back from it to really see what I'm doing to it.
Yeah.
So like up here, I've already painted this, but I'm gonna go back over it because I want it to stand out a little bit more. And we've used just the burnt umber, and now I'm going in with the ultramarine. And this is how, see how the shine, the glimmer on it from the Galkid, it does make it shiny. And it's tacky when it starts to dry. So when you go back in and you work it, see all that extra texture that it's adding, or that the extra, there, you can probably see it better like that.
Yeah.
So all those extra marks in there that it's adding, that's usually what I go for if I go back in and work something. But you really want to just kind of take your time with it and focus on like what you're wanting to pull out, what it is you're wanting to push
Ooh.
back. And so adding all this in here, and then all I'm doing, like I said, is I'm dipping it back in the Galkid, just the Galkid alone, because what I can do is lay that on there and pull it, and it's going to do a lot of the shading for me with very minimal work.
Easy work.
So, and I mean, look how good that looks with just pulling out those different shapes in there.
That's so cool.
And I really like it on the yellow here. So we can go back in on this side if we wanted to and add a little bit of blue there. And then what we'll do is we'll pull, just such an easy way to use the shading. And that blue and the yellow, I mean, I really like the way that that looks on here in contrast with these different browns that we have going on.
Well, it's soothing. So it's soothing. Very, very soothing.
And then we'll go down. Looks like we got some knuckles here. It's interesting. And I'm just pulling this. And you can even roll your brush and kind of get all of that excess off your brush. Go back through with your line work. Let that do its thing. And then move to another part of the painting. A lot of working with this medium, this Galkid, this mineral spirits is letting it dry a little bit, going back, checking your work, and then going into a different area because you have so much work you can do all over.
Yeah.
And then this area is definitely the part I'm going to keep special, so I'm not going to work it just yet because we have a lot to work on around the perimeter here. And I just really want to.
Well, that line work on the side too is really interesting because you have all this like wobbly, almost like rock formations, and then it's just like straight down. I like that.
Yeah, I really wanted to go in and make sure there was a repetitive line that was pulled through the painting somehow. And when you look, the photo reference that I used, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was a rock formation or like a gemstone. And it was pretty much looking down on that gemstone or that crystal, whatever you want to call it. And there's some repetitive lines in there, but they're not exactly like this. This just to me seemed really natural along the long end of the canvas.
Yeah.
So I just pulled it, and we'll go back in and we'll work that as well. We'll add some depth to that as well. I just have to figure out where I want those dark creases to lie, whether it's going to be like right here, and if I want the darkness to go this way or this way. So when you're working it, I recommend turning the painting. Remember me turning the painting last time?
I know I kept, and then when you were painting it in a different way, I kept doing this like sideways.
Turning your head. Yeah.
Like, wait, it's supposed to be like this.
Yeah. So it's definitely
Oh my gosh,
helpful
now it
with.
looks like it's on fire. Like it's so crazy. That's so cool. It looks like a
Yeah.
brush fire almost. That's so cool.
It changes the whole perspective of it whenever you turn it. But the purpose of turning it is so you can have that different perspective to go in and see, oh, well, I see all this here now.
Yeah. Yeah.
How can I work that to bring that forward, to bring it out so that it's also visible? Because one thing about painting, it doesn't matter which way the painting lies. Your eye wants to be pulled into the painting and then drawn across the
Oh
painting
my
if that's
God.
the purpose, and then down and around.
That's
You want
crazy, Tina. Literally, as you were moving your hand from left to right, I was thinking my hand, it looks like there's wind blowing from like left to right.
you definitely want to have a travel path of where the eye goes. You want to know that as the artist, this is where my viewer is going to start, and this is where they're going to go, and the flow of it. And it doesn't matter the orientation in which the painting lies. If I turned it this way, you're still going to start up here and work your way. It's just, it looks different now. So that's the purpose of turning the painting, and that's the purpose of continually, going back in and adding your little details in your work, because all this right here, right now, like this is my favorite part of the painting right now. Does anybody else have a different favorite part?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Jared's like, forget that corner.
I mean, this yellow part is really getting there for me. I really like this color of the yellow part, but I've not done working it, so it's not there yet. But this right here, the way this looks right now, I'm getting what I want from it there.
The beach fire is still my
right here. Yeah.
Yes.
So this painting is becoming something of its own. It's very natural. Like I said, I'm just working it very intuitively. I really, really like how this looks here. Can you guys really get in there and see that?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just the color alone. And then
that little bit of blue in there really
does. Yeah, it really looks really nice. We've got some orange here that I've added some dark to. That's going to turn into something really nice because it's going to end up flowing over this way, which honestly adds to the flow of the desert fire there. Fire. And then we'll go back in and we'll add a little bit more depth into here because I feel like I see some stuff that can connect all these extra lines I've got going on.
Yes.
And then up
so many
here.
opportunities. So, and just to do a shout out for time too. So we're at 6:38.
Okay.
Going to 6:45. So just so you know, so that you have.
Yeah.
Too fast.
I know. I'm telling you. I'm like,
yeah, definitely time flies when you're having fun for sure.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to try some orange right now.
Okay.
And go in with the gal kit and the orange. And what I'm wanting to do is these little tidbits of peach in here. Just hang on, I got too much paint on my brush.
You can tripod it again if you want.
Yeah, but then you won't see the detail. So
true.
So this orange is just going to brighten this up right here. And I'm just going in to these swoops here. And like I said, I'm just dipping in the gal kit, dipping in the orange, coming back in, and just kind of.
Looks like you're painting with marmalade. Marmalade, how do you?
Jelly. We got some jelly on here. Yeah, and then this is kind of bubbly here.
I think I want some.
And then
there you go. I love that.
So cool.
And I'm gonna get some more gal kit. We're gonna extend that paint that I've already got on here. And see how it's thin enough where you still see what's going on underneath it?
Yeah.
And I've got some that's gonna drip, so I'm gonna just.
You're gonna turn it. You turn it. You let it do it. I'm
just gonna go underneath it, and then I'll go in with my glove.
I don't know why I get so nervous. Like, I mean,
Us too.
like,
She went to
why
that
do I
area.
get so nervous? Like,
Same.
like, let it drip, let it happen. But I'm just like, what's gonna happen? This painting is gonna be good. Is gonna be good for me. I think this will be good. Just let it
Totally.
go.
And then we're just gonna go in here, and there's little tidbits of orange that are mixed in with this white right here. So we're just going to add that. Fill in the white. And that's just going to give us a little bit more brightness of that orange.
You
Which is
just took that where it looked like a wind shear. It now looks like a wind swirl just from those few changes for me.
totally.
Just
And see, this right here was my mistake. It's not a mistake, it's a happy accident, right?
Right.
that's my
Yeah, so, and we're going to, and I accidentally got some blue on it that time, so that's not going to really hurt anything because I'm thinning it out.
Cool.
And I'm just getting the Gogh off my brush. It's kind of dripping, so I'm just spreading the love here.
You're gonna have to get Galkid heavy next time instead of Galkid light.
Totally, kids Galkid heavy right now with the Galkid light. I really wish I knew the difference of that. That was a good question. Now I have to look into it.
You're welcome.
You're
See what I'm doing here. Thanks for that. What I'm doing here is just going in with the happy accident that I had with the copper because it's still super wet right here where it's thick.
Oh yeah, you just give it a little smudge.
Yeah, we're just gonna smudge it in, kind of blend it through. And then blend these colors here.
I
And
hear
if you
you
need
beating your
more,
brushes to death.
I'm not. It's sideways. It's a brand new brush.
Are you cleaning these brushes after everything? Every day?
So I rinse them in the mineral spirits and I dry them with my rag and I lay them on their side because if you leave them sitting in your mineral spirits, that's going to eat away at the adhesive glue that attaches the brush to the stick here.
Gotcha.
So if you leave it sitting, it's fine because then it's still gonna be a useful brush until it falls apart and then you're not fine.
Yeah.
But sometimes beggars can't be choosers and you have to use what you have. So what I recommend after each paint session is just to rinse them in the mineral spirits and to either lay them flat or to set them up like this where all of that drips out. Now they do make, let me see if I can turn this around. They do make a soap for your brushes, but you could just use Dawn or Palmolive. Just dish soap will work because it's oil and obviously it's going to get the oil out.
Yeah.
So this is where we are right now. I'm not sure where we are on time, but this is what it's turned into so far.
Well,
wow.
That
I'll
is
flip it upside down for you so you can see what that looks like. And this is how we started here.
Keep flipping, keep flipping.
Yes.
Yes, that's awesome.
So
Okay.
I kind of really like how this is developing. It kind of looks like it is turning into a rock formation or even a flower of sorts.
Yeah,
It still looks kind of soft, but
well,
but
Tina,
yeah,
I'm
you just
super excited to see. So yeah, so it's your painting and I'm excited to see where it goes. And then when you get it to a place that you decide it has come to its end, then we will get it up and put it for sale and we'll let everybody know that it is for sale.
yeah, absolutely.
If you choose to sell it at that time. Because I know you get attached to some. So but yeah, I'm super excited about this. I'm super excited about November 5th coming up and getting a chance to do some of these things in real time with you. We'll definitely reach out and see if Tina can record some of these tutorial videos as a way to learn more as we go along the way and do things with her. So I'm super excited about that. Again, we have supply recommendations on there so everybody can prepare. You can purchase nothing, something, or all of the supplies I would suggest. Just, show up as you are. And, even if you don't have your supplies, that's fine. You can still join us on November 5th.
Absolutely.
Super excited. Well, I'm going to do my little wrap up conclusion about encouraging everybody to take a moment today, tomorrow, to connect with somebody. Either let them know that you're rooting for them or express your gratitude for their support and rooting for you. Stay focused on your goals and know that you're never alone in this pursuit of a healthier, happier life. And Tina and I are definitely rooting for you. And we hope to see you in the next class.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you guys for being here. Great to see everyone. Have a good night, everyone.
Hey guys, I'm sorry I was muted.
What?
Okay, so let me ask you real quick. Are you coming back to finish this painting, or is this painting finished? What's going on? I missed it.
No, I will finish it and then I will post what it looks like finished. And
Awesome.
then from there people can make bids to buy it.
Well, and
Do you
hopefully,
know?
hopefully,
Look at that.
Deborah, hopefully on November 5th, we can all do a canvas of our own in real time with Tina. So hopefully that timing works out for you too. Because
That would be lots of fun.
that'd be so much fun.
Love you, Tina. It's beautiful.
Love you guys.
All right.
Thank you,
Bye,
Debbie.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.